This is 12 Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, a brutally honest blueprint for building a meaningful life. Most self-help books tell you how to get more success, more confidence, more money and motivation. But face it, what you need isn't another hack. You need structure, discipline, purpose. Because the truth is, life is chaotic. And without a set of principles to navigate it, you might never become as successful as you're truly meant to be. By following Peterson's 12 rules, you will learn how to carve your own path, how to confront chaos with courage, turn weakness into strength, and carry yourself like someone who knows where they're going and why. Like many animals, including humans, lobsters fight to establish dominance. The winners are easily distinguished from the losers. They have confident posture, they display their claws prominently, and they move around more freely. Meanwhile, a defeated lobster looks small and timid in comparison. But this isn't just a problem of appearances. Once a lobster has lost one battle, it may become unwilling to fight again. Now it's condemned to a life at the bottom of the food chain. Submissive lobsters live shorter, more miserable and more painful lives than their dominant counterparts. You are not so different from a lobster. You and everyone else you know also fight for your place in the world. And if you don't stand up for yourself, fight for what you want, like the submissive lobster, you will also find yourself at the bottom of the food chain. This is psychological. But it's also physical. If your posture is poor, with your shoulders drooped and your head down, you will feel small and ineffective. Worse, people around you will pick up on it and reflect that negativity back at you. You'll respond by being even more submissive. But when you stand up straight, with your shoulders back, you tell the world and, more importantly, yourself, I belong here, I'm capable, I won't back down. You yourself and the people around you will notice this physical transformation and start to treat you as someone who is confident and able. The psychological becomes physical as powerful neurotransmitters flood your brain, making you feel confident and secure. Now you stand even taller, you breathe more deeply, you'll see farther, wider, and deeper. You will approach every situation with clarity. Clarity breeds confidence, and confidence breeds action. This virtuous cycle will continue until it inevitably compounds into massive success. But it all starts with you making a simple change. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. If you had a daughter or a son, you would do almost anything for them. You'd make sure they took their medicine, got enough rest, ate real food, stayed away from harm. You'd tell them the truth even when it's hard. You'd fight for their future. In fact, we'd even do these things for our pets.
If you have a dog and you take him to a vet and the vet gives you the prescription medicine, you'll go buy the medicine and you will give it to the dog and you will do it properly.
But when it comes to yourself, for some reason it's harder. You delay things, you make excuses, you indulge in easy pleasures that numb the pain but make the problem worse. You treat yourself like someone unworthy of care or discipline. But that has to change. Just like you would do anything for the people you love, remember as well that there are people who love you. You are not beneath saving. You are not an exception to the rules of health, growth, and purpose. You matter, and it's your job to act like it. This doesn't mean giving yourself whatever you want. Real care is not the same as indulgence. It's being disciplined. It means saying no to comfort when it sabotages your future and yes to hard things when they make you stronger. What would you tell yourself if you were someone else you truly wanted to thrive? If you can answer that question, all you need to do is follow through with the answer, even when it's hard, even when you don't want to, especially then. And when you do what's good for you, when you show up, stick to your plan and choose growth over ease, reward yourself. Not with empty pleasures, but things that reinforce the path you're on. This is what gives life its meaning. Progress. When you take responsibility for yourself, when you choose discipline over ease, growth over stagnation, you can become someone you always had the potential to be. Treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping, because you are.
It's okay morally to choose people that are trying to help you be better and to shy away from people who are going to drag you down.
It should be obvious, but it's often not, that the people we spend time with profoundly affect our beliefs, our habits, and our actions. Put simply, you will become like your friends. And therefore, you must choose your friends carefully. The friend who only ever wants to go out drinking. The friend who gets jealous if you spend time with anyone else. The friend who's one person with you, but speaks ill of you to others. None of these people are your friends. And yet, very often we find ourselves sticking with them simply because we grew up in the same town. We went to school together. We've just always been friends. None of these are good reasons for remaining friends with someone who makes you worse. A good friend is one who's with you when you try to become better, tells you the truth even when it's difficult to hear, and genuinely supports you when you're struggling. They won't resent your successes or encourage your worst habits. They'll bring out the best in you and expect nothing less. But let's say you acknowledge that one of your friends is not a good influence on you, but they need your help, and that's what friends are for, right? Well, maybe. But ask yourself, does my friend truly want to be helped? What actions are they taking that show they do? Am I really helping them, or just enabling their bad choices? Am I helping them just to make myself feel better? Would I be happy for my son or daughter or sister to be friends with this person? If the answer is no, then why should you be? Friendship is a two-way street. You should get as much out of your friends as your friends do from you. If you don't, you're in a different kind of relationship, but it's definitely not friendship. Remember, if you spend time with people who are aimless, dishonest, or destructive, you will become this way yourself. If you surround yourself with people who live with purpose and push you to become better, you will, more than you could even imagine. Make friends with people who want the best for you. Every time you skip going to the gym, forget your partner's birthday, or make a decision you're not proud of, there's a voice in our head that says, "You did it again. I knew you would. You're no good." This is your internal critic, the relentless inner voice that condemns your mediocrity and pulls no punches. It's difficult to ignore and even harder to silence. But why would you want to? The truth is, you only have to look around to see that there are poor managers, talentless musicians, and bad writers everywhere. The inner critic is the price we pay for standards. But as vital as this inner critic is, it is flawed. Typically, it selects a singular area of life, as if that were the most important, and compares you with the most stellar example in that field. Unsurprisingly, when you compare yourself to Mozart, Jeff Bezos, or LeBron James, you always fall short. Comparing yourself to others is fruitless because the details of whatever game you're playing are too specific to you. So what if you aren't as fit as that influencer? Do you have their genetics? Were they up for 2 hours last night with a sick child? Do you have the money to pay for a personal trainer? In your rush to compare yourself to other people, maybe you're undervaluing what you already have. A calm mind, a stable relationship, meaningful work. These things are not easily come by and certainly not available to everyone. Be grateful for what you have rather than anxious about what you don't. And don't you have more than one identity? Aren't you a parent as well as a business owner? A runner as well as a husband? A friend as well as a student? It's extremely unlikely you're failing in all these areas of life. But I want to win at everything, you say. Well, if you truly are winning at everything, you're not growing. And maybe growing is the most important form of winning. So if you want to improve, be careful of comparing yourself to other people. Instead, use your inner critic to suggest something that could be better about your life. Start small. Find one thing you could do to make the end of today feel better than the start, and choose a small reward for doing it. Perhaps it's simply folding clothes, done in 5 minutes, and the reward is a coffee. Now you have a plan. Go and fold the clothes. It doesn't matter how badly you do it, just follow the plan and give yourself the reward afterwards. Then do it again tomorrow and the day after, and you'll see how quickly you improve. What took 5 minutes now takes 3. After that, focus on something else. Maybe you decide to go for a 10-minute run and then treat yourself to your favorite lunch. Now you're aiming higher, you're going further. Do this for 3 years and you'll be unrecognizable. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today.
As a clinical psychologist, I've seen the full Freudian nightmare, I can tell you that. And, I've seen families where it's like this, it's like the family members are standing in a circle, let's say, and each of them has their hands around each other's neck, and they're squeezing hard enough to strangle the other person in 20 years.
It might sound strange to tell parents not to let their children do anything that would make them dislike them, but it's not so crazy. We've all seen an angry, crying child making their parents' life miserable as they're dragged around a supermarket or sat on a plane. Perhaps you sympathize with that parent. You might even have been that parent. It doesn't look fun, but maybe sympathy isn't the best response. Children naturally test the limits of the world and the people around them. That's part of how they figure out being a human. But if their parents don't correct them when they're being rude, lazy, or manipulative, they'll keep doing it until someone else does. This is why it's important to give children boundaries. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're how children learn to become people others want to be around. But now think about yourself. Just like a child who's never been told no, an adult with no self-discipline is no fun to be around. People who respect themselves don't like to be around people who make excuses, who show up late, lie, and break the rules. So what habits, practices, and attitudes do you tolerate in yourself that you secretly can't stand? The uncontrollable scrolling, the excuses, the way you avoid hard conversations. These aren't things you would tolerate in others, so don't tolerate them in yourself. Appropriate discipline is an act of love and self-respect, not a punishment. It's an active choice for short-term effort over long-term regret. So don't let your kids, or yourself for that matter, do anything that makes you dislike them or yourself.
Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
There's plenty of things to criticize about being. It's tragic, and there's malevolence.
No one knew that better than Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Solzhenitsyn was a twice-decorated soldier who bravely fought for the Soviet Union against the Nazis. But just 3 months before the end of the war, he made a fatal mistake. After making some negative comments about the way Stalin was fighting the war, he was condemned to 8 years imprisonment in the gulags, the Soviet Union's brutal work camps. When all of Moscow celebrated Germany's defeat in May 1945, Solzhenitsyn had to watch the fireworks from his prison cell. "That victory was not ours," he later wrote. He spent the next 8 years doing back-breaking work and was nearly dead from cancer by the time he was released. Solzhenitsyn then did what almost no one else would have done in his circumstances. Instead of raging against the Soviet Union, against his captors, or even God, he asked himself if he was responsible for the catastrophes that had fallen upon him. With searing honesty, Solzhenitsyn questioned every element of his past. What mistakes had he made? How often had he acted against his own conscience? Could he stop making those mistakes now? Intellectually, he took himself apart, piece by piece, only retaining the parts of his personality he knew to be good and letting everything else go. Only then, after putting himself in order psychologically, could Solzhenitsyn turn his attention to the wider world. The result was the Gulag Archipelago, an incendiary book which exposed the horrors of the Soviet prison camps and ultimately contributed to the collapse of the Soviet Union. Everybody says they want to change the world, but Solzhenitsyn's story proves something important. If you do, you must start with yourself. Are you working hard in your career? Are you treating the people you love with dignity and respect? Do your habits strengthen your health and well-being? If the answer to any of these questions is no, it's time to start stopping. Stop blaming the right or the left or your parents or anyone else. Stop making excuses. Stop whatever it is you do that you know to be wrong. You can use your own standards of judgment here, because in your heart, you already know when you're doing something wrong. When your room is messy, when you indulge, when you don't try, a feeling in your stomach tells you, "I'm better than this." Listen to that feeling, act on it, and keep an eye out. When you do what you know to be right and you do it consistently, then you become the kind of person who can look beyond yourself. But again, start small. First with your family, then your community, your country, and then the world can be yours as well. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
It's a luxury to pursue what makes you happy. It's a moral obligation to pursue what you find meaningful.
If the world is full of pain and suffering, why not just pursue pleasure? After all, it's available to us everywhere, every minute of the day. The opposite is sacrifice. Giving up something now for the promise of something even better in the future. For example, you might give up the comfort of lying in bed to go to the gym, knowing that the long-term benefits to your physical and mental health far outweigh the convenience of staying in bed. It would be easier and more pleasant to sleep in, but that pleasure will be quickly forgotten once you do get up. On the other hand, the satisfaction you'll enjoy from working out is likely to persist for much longer. And if you do stay in bed, there might just be a nagging voice in your head for the rest of the day, telling you should have gone to the gym this morning. This is the difference between what is expedient and what is meaningful. Expedience provides short-term pleasure while putting off discomfort and pain until later. Things that are meaningful satisfy all impulses, now and in the future. The issue is, at some point in your life, you will face tragedy, loss, or difficulty. There's no way around it. But by pursuing meaningful goals and values, you'll find yourself far better placed to endure any hardship life may throw at you. And in practical terms, what does it mean to pursue meaningful goals? Anything you can do to relieve the pain or suffering of yourself or anyone around you is a meaningful goal. Sometimes it means saying good morning to your neighbor, holding the door open for the mother pushing a stroller, smiling at your colleagues as you greet them. These are tiny actions that will make tiny positive differences to the people who experience them. But just like each note played by an orchestra is a layer of a glorious symphony, your tiny actions add up. In a larger sense, social media, fast food, and video games are inexpensive and entertaining, expedient, but not very meaningful. Instead, find something greater to dedicate your life to, and whether it's your work, your family, or anything else, focus on the things that truly make a difference, not just today, but always. Pursue what is meaningful instead of what is expedient.
Well, telling the truth is hard,
lie.
Because you have to know the truth. And that's hard. But you can know when you're lying.
Imagine someone who insists everything in their life is fine when it really isn't. They avoid conflict, so they never get what they really need. They can't stand up to their boss, so they get taken advantage of. When they're treated badly, they don't protest. This person is little more than a slave, a tool for others to exploit. Each time they refuse to speak the truth, it may feel like they're taking the easy way out, but like all expedient decisions, the consequences will only be felt further down the line. All too often, those consequences manifest as a life filled with shame, fear, and resentment, all because they refuse to speak the truth. Pay attention to what you say and do. When you truly attend to your words and your actions, you'll notice an uncomfortable physical feeling when you misspeak or misbehave, an emptiness in the stomach, or an uncontrollable need to move. It's unmistakable. This feeling is there for a reason, and if you leave it unattended, it will grow until it consumes you. Yes, it takes courage to speak the truth, to stand up to the unreasonable boss, to challenge the bigoted individual, or demand the things you deserve. It may be hard in the moment, but in the long run, it will build strength of character, trust, and clarity in you and in your relationships. Often, you won't know the full truth, so as a starting point, at least be prepared not to lie. That way, even if you're uncertain, you can build a reputation for reliability. And when you're honest to yourself, and when you're honest to others, there's no empty feeling in your stomach. In its place, there is only strength. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. One of the greatest psychotherapists of the 20th century, Carl Rogers, once said, "The great majority of us cannot listen. The first requirement is courage, and we do not always have it." Think about that for a second. Listening, real listening, takes guts. Rogers believed that in any conversation you're in, you should stop, slow down, and repeat back what the other person said. Not just the words, but the emotion behind them, until they agree you've got it right. Now, think back to today. A conversation with your partner, your boss, your kid. Can you repeat word for word what they were really trying to tell you? If you try it, you'll realize it's hard, really hard. In most conversations, people are either trying to be the smartest one in the room or just simply waiting for their turn to talk. These are not conversations. They're competitions, and they go nowhere fast. But when you truly listen to someone, something strange happens. You start thinking in ways you never have before. Why? Because people often don't even know what they truly think until they say it out loud. The first time, your thoughts might come out jumbled or contradictory. But now, in that moment, you get a chance to clean them up, to sharpen them, to understand. When you do this with another person, wonderful things can happen. You challenge each other's ideas. You force each other to consider things you might never have. You find truth. You can grow immeasurably from a conversation, but to do so, you have to start with one radical assumption: that the other person might know something you don't. You have to mean it, you have to show it, and you have to speak up when their words resonate with you, when something they say actually moves you. Because the second you do, you change, and so do they. Now, you're not talking at each other, you're building something together. Assume that the person you're listening to might know something you don't. Sometimes, the hardest part of solving a problem is knowing what the problem actually is. You walk into the kitchen, your partner is silent, you ask what's wrong. They say nothing, but it's clearly not. Was it something you said? Did you forget something? Are they mad at you, or is something else going on? You try being extra nice, maybe you crack a joke, or you give them space. And so now you're stuck in emotional quicksand, trying to fix something you can't even see. Anything you do in this situation will only make things worse, because the real problem is that you don't know what the problem is. This is what happens when we're not precise with our words. In our relationships, or anything in life, vagueness is the enemy of progress. We tend to avoid saying what's really bothering us, because it's uncomfortable, awkward, or painful. We say "I'm fine" when we're not, or "it's complicated" when our problem is actually very specific, just hard to admit. But avoiding our problems doesn't make them disappear, it gives them space to grow. The truth is, problems left undefined only get worse, but when you define a problem precisely, it becomes solvable. Words cut through the fog. When you speak clearly about what's wrong, you turn chaos into structure. You give shape to what was once just a feeling. Think about it. A noise in the woods could be a wolf, or a bear, or just a rabbit. Until you look, until you name it, you don't know whether you should run or relax. Yes, being precise might reveal that things are just as bad or even worse than you fear. But it might also show you that they're not. Either way, you win, because now you know. Now you can act. Be precise in your speech.
Rule 11 is don't bother children when they're skateboarding. And that's a meditation on the difference between weakness and goodness.
Kids do something strange at the skate park. They climb to the top of a steep ramp, throw themselves down knowing they might fall, and when they do, they get back up and do it again. No one stops them, and no one should, because falling is how they learn balance. Fear is how they learn courage, and freedom is how they learn responsibility. Strength makes people better, but it can only be earned through struggle. That's why letting kids take risks, fail, and get hurt, within reason, is not negligence, it's preparation. Because a child who's protected from every bump, bruise, or mistake will grow up fragile, mentally, emotionally, physically. A child who's never allowed to fall never learns how to get back up. But a child who climbs back on the board after getting wrecked, that kid learns mastery. They learn to believe that they can handle it, and that belief follows them for the rest of their life. This isn't just about children, this is about you. There's only one way to learn how to drop in on a steep ramp. You either try or you don't. You either fall and figure it out, or you never move forward. And that applies everywhere. In business, in relationships, in conflict, in ambition. Do you wait for permission, or do you step up and find out what you're made of? Don't rob others of that chance either. When a kid is skateboarding, they're not just messing around. They're training. For risk, for failure, for life. You interrupt that, and you're not helping, because life is dangerous, and the only way to face it is to become someone who can handle it. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding.
Final rule. It's called pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. And it's the most personal, a lot about my daughter. And my daughter was very ill when she was a kid, but particularly when she was a teenager. She had a very terrible time of it. She had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and when she was between the ages of 14 and 16, it first destroyed her hip, which had to be replaced, and then it destroyed the ankle on her other leg, which had to be replaced. She walked around for 2 years on broken legs, and she was taking massive doses of opiates and could hardly stay awake, and she had this advanced autoimmune disease, which produced all sorts of other symptoms that were just as bad as the joint degeneration, but which are harder to describe.
It seems senseless and cruel that such a thing could happen to a child, but sometimes life just hurts. Bad things happen to innocent people, and eventually they'll happen to you too. But this is reality. Pain is part of life. You can resist it, deny it, throw your fist at God, but none of that will make it go away. The better question is, what do you do when suffering comes? You start by shrinking the problem down to size. Don't just say, I hate my life, or I hate my job. Ask what specifically is going wrong. Where exactly is the pain coming from? Break the chaos into manageable pieces. Maybe your boss stresses you out near deadlines. Could you schedule your work differently? Maybe you hate your office. Could you step outside after lunch, even for 10 minutes, and feel the sun on your face? Next, look for good in the world. Not in some naive, delusional way, but as a skill, a discipline. Because if you can find one thing to be grateful for in the middle of your pain, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than it. Make it a practice. Write down 5 things you're grateful for, or 3, or just 1. Do it again tomorrow, and again the day after that. Eventually, gratitude will come more easily because you trained for it. You'll start to notice beauty in the warmth of sunlight through a window, the sound of a child's laughter, the smell of fresh coffee, or the peace of a deep breath. And maybe, just maybe, on your worst day, when you're walking down the street with the weight of the world on your shoulders, you'll see a cat. It might brush against your leg, or stop to blink at you. Pause, smile, pet the cat. Because no matter how stressful, painful, or downright unforgiving life can be sometimes, there are small moments of beauty everywhere you're willing to look. If you're willing to see the light, even in your darkest moments, you'll make it through anything. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. This was 12 Rules for Life by Dr. Jordan Peterson. These lessons will help you weather the darkest storms in your journey. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely want to watch our video on the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Just click the thumbnail on the screen right now to watch it, and we'll see you there.